Have you seen this awesome video about the scientific publishing culture? It's called Should Science Be Free? It's just, I loved it. And this is going to be me responding to the video or adding to the video, because I had the feeling, even though it discusses the issue very, very well, there's not so much actionable advice. So this video is meant to give this actionable advice on how to improve as scientists and how to improve the scientific publishing culture without screwing up our own careers. So watch until the end of the video. Actually, I used to have a pet peeve with the publishing culture for such a long time, and this is actually the very reason why Career Conversations exists, because I wanted to give researchers the opportunity or show them other options, how they can still build a career even though they might not be publishing in journals with super high impact factors. I do this very much through Twitter, so if you are an academic who wants to take their narrative into their own hands, then be sure to subscribe to my channel and also to follow me on Twitter as Career Conversa 1. I know this video, Should Science Be Free, has summarized the issues very, very well, but in case you haven't watched the video, I will still quickly summarize why the scientific publishing culture is really, really messed up. Academic articles, if you want to buy them, cost about $30 per article. Unless you work at a university, and then they usually have a subscription, but still researchers have to pay to read scientific articles. And you might think, okay, fair enough. But the thing is, the journals have not been really part in generating, well, they have not been at all part in generating the data. They've also not really been part in reviewing the data very much. Because this is actually the second issue, that scientists usually peer review the work of fellow scientists for free for the journals. So the journals are only having like a higher threshold where they're saying this publication might be interesting for us to publish, but the actual work, actually looking at the experiments, seeing whether researchers are drawing the right conclusions from their data, this is usually done for free by fellow scientists. And this concept of peer reviews is very, very important. There's no arguing with that. And it is actually the main argument why people say we still need this scientific publishing system. But I wonder if there's a better way to also get this kind of peer review with a different system, and I will get into this later in the video, so be sure to stay tuned. After an article has been accepted and has been peer reviewed again for free by other scientists, us scientists who want to publish the data have again to pay to get our data published. And this is the part that is hugely upsetting to me. We pay both to have our work published, and then we pay again to read our work or the work of fellow scientists. It is a brilliant business model when you think about it. If it weren't so morally wrong, imagine with any other business, you have a customer that is making their own product and then pays you to sell it. And then at the same time, those same customers are also improving other people's products that you are selling, also for free. And then they are buying their own homemade or self-made products again. It's brilliant in a way, but it's also hugely upsetting, to me at least. And it's also kind of mind-boggling to me why academia didn't think earlier, like, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. And there's actually a reason for that, which is that universities are hiring based on how many publications we have, how good our impact factors are, and so on and so forth. And this is actually another thing that is really, really wrong with the system that we are having at the moment. So in theory, there could be some rebellious scientists who might say, nope, not participating in this. I don't publish my data in those types of journals. But the problem is then you are completely messing up your career, and in the end you won't have a career after all. So we are all dependent on publishing in good journals in order to have a career. So even though many scientists are very, very outspoken about those issues on Twitter, at the end of the day they are still publishing and supporting the system because their careers are relying on it. And it's not only that the money aspect is bothering me, that we are paying double and are working for free for the journals. It is also that this publishing system is really, really messing up science and the scientific culture. Because the thing is, since journals have so much power, they get to choose which data to publish and which data not to publish. And journals usually choose to publish novel and significant data. Novel data means nobody else has published those data before. And significant means that, for instance, if you work in cancer research and you treat your cells with a certain treatment, their behavior or their phenotype is changing when you treat the cells compared to the untreated cells. This is what significant means. And especially with the significant part, I have a huge problem. Several huge problems, actually. First of all, if a treatment has no effect on the cell behavior or cell phenotype, this is equally as interesting for the scientific community. I don't even want to know how many experiments have been repeated all over the world and how many billions of dollars have been wasted with experiments that people are doing again and again and again and again because nobody has ever published that something doesn't work. So actually something not working is very, very interesting piece of information. Also, the significance of our data says nothing about our skills as scientists. There are so many brilliant scientists whose hypotheses just didn't turn out to be true. And this is just so common in science. But if you have several not significant data, or too many, then you cannot really publish in great journals anymore, or you've wasted a lot of time, and the probability that you will get a compelling story for big journals out of your PhD or out of your postdoc is decreasing. So having non-significant results can actually have a huge impact on our career. Even though, and I say this so many times, we are not in control of our data. And if we are cheating. And this brings me to the next point, actually. What do people do if their career relies on something that they are not in control of? They try to get in control of this very thing. So the way to get in control of your data is actually to be cheating. Or there are many things that are borderline cheating, and then there are also people that are actually cheating and are actually putting in fake results. And by the way, I'm not saying that most scientists are cheating. Actually, the majority of scientists are very, very honest and do their best to create the best science as possible. But there are still many who actually do cheat, unfortunately. And it is enough so that they are contributing to a huge part to the current reproducibility crisis that we are observing in science. This means that there are labs who are trying to replicate the results that someone is describing in their paper with the same methodology, but don't manage to create the same results. And actually there are so many data that are not reproducible, and this is a whole different issue of wasting time and energy of fellow scientists. Wow, this has actually been a rather long rant, given that it was only supposed to be a summary, but I think it is still important to summarize those things to give you some context. And let me know if I've forgotten something. Also let me know what is your opinion on this, whether I'm a little bit too rigid, but I think it is really a huge problem. But let's not stay with the problem for too long. Let's get to the solutions, because there are actually two main solutions that I'm personally finding very, very compelling. So what do we want? We want a system where we have peer reviews, where not everyone can just publish anything unchecked and just publish BS, basically. So we need peer reviews. Also, we want a system where we can publish all data, not only those data that journals are currently think are sexy, but every experiment that has been done in a sound way should be publishable. And the first solution for that are registered reports. I think it was Chris Chambers who first came up with registered reports. The concept of that is that before you do your first experiment, you describe your research hypothesis, you describe why you think, based on the literature or based on previous data, you believe that your hypothesis is true. And then you also describe your research plan. Basically, the way that you would also do it in a grant proposal. And then, again, fellow scientists are reviewing your research plan, and you get a publication guaranteed. And you can even, when you realize your data are nature-worthy rather than +1 worthy or something like that, you can even upgrade the journal later. So you're not committed to the journal in the beginning. But yeah, you're getting a publication guaranteed, regardless of how long it might take you, regardless of whether or not your data are significant. And I think this is brilliant, because if significance of data is not a factor anymore, people can really just publish the data the way that they have generated them. Even non-significant data are no deal breaker because you still have your paper guaranteed. Also, you still get this peer reviewing process, and you also get, well, a publication in the end. So if you want to be on the safe side career-wise, you still publish in a journal. So this is one option that I do believe is a really, really great option overall for the scientific community, to evaluate researchers based on their research hypothesis rather than on the novelty or significance of their data. The other option, and those two can actually complement each other, are preprints. Preprints are servers, like for instance you might have heard of bioRxiv or medRxiv, where you can upload your data slowly and gradually while you're doing experiments for your paper. And actually, this is also a very important piece of information. Most journals still publish data even though they've already been published on a preprint server. And I think one of the big advantages, or there are several big advantages, but the main advantage is that you are already claiming rights for those experiments. So once you've published those data on those preprint servers, and then maybe later maybe you want to file a patent for your data or something like that, then you can point towards those experiments and say, yes, I know you have published the paper first, but I have already found those super significant and important data 2 years earlier, as you can see on the preprint server. So legally, it is actually a great, great thing to have. And there's also another thing that is just going to be great for your career. Because since you're safe legally with those data, you can easily publish new data and also maybe contradicting data that you're having on Twitter. So you can, for instance, tweet about those contradicting results and say, dear scientific Twitter community, which by the way happens to be super active and super helpful, this whole scientific Twitter community. So you can say, dear scientific Twitter community, I have this piece of data and that piece of data, and I have no idea how they go together. Could you give me some feedback? And first of all, you're getting feedback on your research in real time while you're doing experiments for your paper. And you are also building relationship and maybe even collaborations with fellow researchers. And I think this is such a brilliant thing. I mean, I'm super active on academic Twitter, and people are so happy to help that I think it is just a missed opportunity if you are not doing this. And also on those preprint servers, even if you have a lot of non-significant data, you can still have a bit of peer review. Because I see that this is a problem, or some people might consider it a problem, that you don't have this typical reviewing process on the preprint servers. But what you do have instead is a comment section below the experiments and below your research story. And actually, I find this type of peer review, where you have a comment section below a paper, preferable to the current reviewing process. Because currently there are 3 reviewers that are more or less motivated to put some effort into your paper and reviewing it. And then us as readers just have to rely on them doing a good job. Because sometimes when there is a method that I'm not really familiar with, I have to believe people that they have done the experiment in the best way possible. But we don't really get to read the reviewer comments. And I'd much rather look at the comments of the entire scientific community on a paper and see people weighing the pros and cons, having an active discussion about a paper, instead of just being presented with a paper and having to draw my own conclusions. And like I said, most journals are still publishing your research story, even though it has already been published on preprint servers. So actually, I cannot really think of any downside of this. So I think this is something that you should be doing already and that everyone should be doing. And since I mentioned Twitter, there's an interesting phenomenon on those preprint servers, or especially on bioRxiv, which is that usually people are counting citations of a paper, but actually bioRxiv has started to have a count for retweets, which makes me think we really need to start to invest into our professional Twitter presence now, because it is going to become increasingly important. The more people are saying, okay, screw it, I'm going to rely on preprint servers instead of only relying on journals, the more Twitter and this retweet ranking is going to play a role. So I think we should be early adopters in this and yes, improve our Twitter, because there are so many things that we can do if we understand the Twitter algorithm, or if we understand how to structure our tweets so that they're getting more engagement. And this is actually what I do with career conversations a lot. And this is actually closing the cycle quite nicely, isn't it? Because, for instance, you can check out this playlist right here where I show you how to promote your research online, particularly on Twitter, but also with a few other tools. So don't miss out on that. And also I have a little freebie, which is about my 3-step tweet formula. And this formula basically shows you how I structure my tweets to get a maximum of attention and also a maximum of engagement out of my tweets. And yeah, if you like this video, then be sure to subscribe to my channel. I also give it a like because it helps me a lot with the algorithm. Speaking of algorithms. And yeah, let me know. I'd love to hear your opinion actually in this case, because I'm so passionate about this topic. Yeah, I'd like to see if I forgot a point, whether there is something that I'm not considering. And yeah, also, if you don't want to comment here under the video, you can write me a DM on Twitter. Again, CareerConversa1. And with this, good luck with your research and take good care of yourself. Bye.